Now I'm going to line up sequentially these images from left to right. And I could go ahead now, and if I was to click on the one below with my playback head at 3 seconds and hold the shift and snap, it'll go to the playback head. So to make precise movements and changes in After Effects, we use the shift key. It doesn't have the default setting like Premiere. Now, in order to line these all up with that 1 second overlap, it would be kind of tedious. I'd have to put my playback head at the end of clip 2, and then in the timeline I'd have to back up to 5 seconds 29, hit return, and then I would have to select clip number 3 and shift and snap the end of it to that playback head. There's an easier way to do this. I'll start by zing out what I've done, and I'll select the top clip and then shift select the bottom clip. If I were to go to animation at the top of the user interface, you'll see the term keyframe assistant. And on that sub menu, once you do, you'll see sequence layers. So in here, I want it to overlap for 1 second, so I'll click on overlap, and I'll click and drag through, and I'll put in 100. Now, there's also transitions that are available, kind of standard ones. But if I wanted to have a variety of transitions, I wouldn't bother with that. I'm just going to do the overlap. So I'll click OK. And if we look at our timeline now, you can see the clips are now overlapping one after the other with that 1 second duration on the top of each one. Thing about After Effects is you'll notice, unlike a video app such as Premiere, you can't put more than one clip in the same timeline. So that's one of the limitations. Next, I'd like to put a transition between clip number 1 and clip number 2. Because we can only put one clip or video track in a track at a time in After Effects, the transition would go on the clip above here. So I've selected that clip and I have my playback head at second number 3. I'll go up to Effects and I'll go to Transitions and I'll go to Linear Wipe. And in the left-hand side of the app, you'll see that our project window has been replaced with the features of the transition. I'm going to zoom back so I can see the whole image. And if I was to drag where it says Transition Completion, I get an idea of how that transition would work over time. Now, once again, there's that stopwatch that appears throughout After Effects. So I'm going to zero that out at the 3 second mark, and I'll drop the first keyframe. Now I want this transition to end at the end of clip number 1. So I'll hold the shift key and snap it to the end of clip number 1. Now I'll go back up to the upper left-hand corner to the transition attributes, and I'll make it 100%. And if I was to drag through my timeline, I'll hit plus on the keyboard to zoom in a bit. Holding the spacebar will give you the hand that allows you to navigate the timeline as well. So if I was to drag through now, my clip goes from small to large and then wipes to the image below. Next, I'd like to put a simple fade out between clip number 2 and clip number 3. I'll select clip number 2. Holding the shift, I'll snap the playback head to the beginning of clip number 3 directly below it. I'm going to go to the far left-hand side now where we looked at the features when we scroll open here, and you'll see the term opacity. And as I've done with the scale and with the transition we introduced in clip number 1, I'll click on opacity to put in our first keyframe, and I'm leaving it at 100%. I'll shift and snap the playback head to the end of clip 2, and I'll make the opacity 0. So now if I was to drag through clip 2 through 3, I'm fading to the image below. Any transitions I add, whether it's the simple opacity by opening the transform tabs, or under effects, transitions, they all take place at the 3 second mark of each clip. If I were to tap my spacebar now, I can preview what I've done so far. But the timeline will continue to play through areas which haven't been worked on yet, so I'd like to restrict the area in which to preview. I'll tap my spacebar to stop that. You'll notice that in the timeline below the second sequence markers, you'll see a flat gray bar, and you'll see flanked on either end of it, the beginning as well as the end, this little vertical blue rectangle. Now, because I've zoomed in, I don't see it on the far right-hand side. So I'll select my timeline, I'll tap my minus key until I see the whole thing. Now you'll be able to kind of click and drag that to the area you want to preview. And now if I was to tap my space bar, it will continue to loop through just that area. Now I'm going to go ahead and put transitions throughout all the clips. And then when I return in part 3, we will add the audio.